Hello everybody, it's Alex from Tech for Life, and I'm back with another video in the Martian II frame race quad build series. It's a bit of a long title, I suppose, but nonetheless, that is what it is. So, as you can see, it is finally done. It's completed, built, whatever you want to call it. But the point is, it's done. And, you know, it was my first full-on build, so I would say it looks pretty good, but it flies incredible. And so this video is just kind of going to be an overview, more of a review of all the parts that I have put together and what I think of it. So I guess I'll start off with how easy it was to put together. I say how easy it was, what I should be saying is how hard it was. Because putting this frame together, none of the screws or anything really seemed to line up. It was a bit of a struggle to get the frame actually to go together. Once I did, it worked, but it required me to kind of, you know, I didn't necessarily file any specific parts out, which I probably should have, but I had to tap screws through with a hammer and that type of stuff, which is, it doesn't seem like that's how it's supposed to work, but I could be wrong. You know, tell me down in the comments below if you've dealt with more expensive frames that have also had that issue. But that, on that point, this is a $26 frame, so you know, I guess I would expect that from a frame like this. You know, they probably never change the tools that they use when they're actually creating these frames, drilling the holes, doing all that type of stuff. So, I mean, I don't really expect the highest of quality. I did expect things to go together fairly easy, which was not what actually happened, but, you know, it worked nonetheless. And also, I'm sorry, guys, if you hear me kind of like cough here or there, or sniff or something like that. I'm a little bit under the weather. I got a little bit of a cold going, so that's kind of why this video hasn't been put out earlier, because this quadcopter's been done for a little bit now. But anyway, so yeah, so here's the frame, or here's everything put together. You know, I know I showed it in the beginning, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of kind of a spin around here. I don't have any little fancy tables to spin it on, but I have my hands. And so, oh, that's the other thing I wanted to mention about the frame. So, not only did it go together a bit rough, but if you look on the bottom, you'll notice that the screws don't even go all the way through the actual nut. So the bolt doesn't go all the way through the nut, meaning I don't even know if it, you know, the fact that they're lock nuts with that nylon little strip on the inside, I don't even know if that's working. I mean, it hasn't fallen apart yet, but for all I know, that could be just because everything went together so tight. So, you know, I don't really know. That was one of the things that kind of did tick me off about this frame a little bit. You know, you can see on this one right here, where you know, this top right bolt and nut is, it doesn't even go all the way through. So, you know, I can't tell if that's actually gripping or not. And these down here are even worse in a couple of cases. So that kind of made me a bit upset, because I don't want this thing to fall apart midair. If you'll notice, there's some crap on the inside, and that's because I tried putting some Loctite, just dripping it on the bottom. Apparently I bought the wrong type of Loctite, because it didn't dry for a long time, and even when it did, it was still kind of crappy. So I'm not 100% sure what Loctite I should have bought, but I didn't buy the right stuff. Anyway, so that was kind of one more gripe about this frame. But you know, it's hard to have complaints when it's so cheap. You know, you get what you pay for, and that's that's how things work. So overall, I love it. It's absolutely great, and I suppose I'll go into how it flies and how everything works together now. And I guess I'll start off by saying, oh my god, this thing flies amazing. It flies incredible. Compared to, obviously there's always some comparative point when you're saying, oh my god, something flies amazing. And my point that I'm comparing off of, my previous quad was a Falcon 250 with the CC3D in it, and it was running Libre Pilot. Now, when I was flying that, I never touched the PIDs, so get that out of the way real quick. I never touched the PIDs on either of these, but this one is loaded with Betaflight, and it has an F3 flight controller. And compared to the Falcon 250, oh my god, does this thing fly incredible. I've flown a bunch of little micro quads. I've flown the Falcon 250, and when I flew this, I thought something was wrong. It flew that good that I thought something was actually wrong. And so that was the moment I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be able to fly so much faster, so much better with a quad like this compared to my Falcon 250. And even though it's a budget quad, a budget build, for someone who has only flown something like a Falcon 250 or another cheap Chinese ready-to-fly, this is a huge step in the right direction. And it also helps you learn how to build your own quad and what goes into it. Yeah, like I said, as far as flying, oh my god, it's so smooth. And that's the biggest part, is it's quick, it's responsive, and it's smooth. There's no jitters. Obviously the occasional oscillation here and there, because like I said, I haven't touched the PIDs, but it's so smooth. It's incredible how well it flies. And the other difference is I immediately, on this one, I put 3-bladed doll prop tri-blade 5040s on it. I believe they're the V2s or something of that nature. And I think they're supposed to be bullnose because that's what they look like to me, but it doesn't necessarily say bullnose anywhere specifically. At least from where I got them. Now, as far as should you go straight for the 3-blade props if you haven't flown anything else, I'd say no. I'd definitely say stick with 2-bladed props if you're just beginning, if you're just starting out. And I even might go as far as saying just go with like a 50-40. I wouldn't go with a 50-30 though. Those are kind of just garbage at this point. No one flies 50-30s, so even 3-bladed 50-30s. In fact, I've never even seen a 3-bladed 50-30 prop, so that just shows you how bad they are. But yeah, so I mean, with these motors, that's the other thing, is these motors are so smooth. I haven't heard a noise from them, except for obviously when I plug them in. When I plug the quad in, but there's no rattling, there's no crunch. It's extremely smooth, and it feels so good. It made me, when I took off, even just the first time I took off, I just kind of hovered it in my living room actually, and I felt so confident. It adds a lot of confidence when you have control and it's really smooth. And so that's something that I really liked about this whole build and the experience. Now, you'll see on the side, this is what I did with that black XC60. This was not smart. I'll be the first to admit my own mistakes, and this was certainly one of them. The way that I did this was just a terrible design. I think I was just really excited, and I wanted to get it done, but that was not the way to do it, and I'm actually going to have to remove that because it's killing the wires on my batteries because of the way I have to bend them to get them to actually go in there. So yeah, that was my first mistake. but I do plan on fixing that. So, yeah, like I said, that was my first mistake. And then, I suppose if we're talking about mistakes, my second mistake, now I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see it. Actually, oh, that's a much better angle. You see these wires right here? These wires are poking up through this cutout. And if it weren't for that cutout, I don't even know if it would fit. And that was probably, I mean, you know, it works, but it's worrisome in the fact that it looks like those wires are just getting crushed, and I just don't like that. And that was the result of me using the vertical pins. So, if I have any recommendations for people building something with an F3 in a tight build like this Martian frame, whatever you do, don't use those vertical pins, because, you know, when you use those, that's a much better angle. You can obviously see, you know, when you use those vertical pins, it just raises it too high. Now, I wanted, you can see this USB port right here, I wanted that on the side so I could obviously tune the quad. So I had to rotate it to get it there, because I mean, obviously I can't put it on this side because the XT60 and stuff is there. Which, by the way, I am going to shorten that. So, you know, as I said, I'm going to have to fix it. I'm definitely going to have to shorten that. Maybe even, unfortunately, use that yellow ugly thing. But, so, that's the USB port. And then, I had to rotate the board like this, which meant I couldn't use the horizontal pins, because those would go into the XT60, or so I thought. What I wasn't thinking is that I could have them facing this direction, you know, towards the camera if you're looking at it like this. I didn't think of that, and I saw a video, I believe, see, I'm not 100% sure who it was, so I won't say which YouTuber it was. I don't want to mess that up, but I saw someone on YouTube doing a build, and while they were doing it, they used the vertical pins facing this way. Now, I thought they wouldn't fit that way, but there is a way you can do it. You just gotta basically plug all the wires, you know, plug all the connectors into it, and then solder it so that you know everything fits. Very smart idea. I wish I had seen that before doing this build. But it is what it is at this point, so I'm hoping maybe at some point I'll chop down those little plastic connectors and clip off some of the metal stuff, or some of the metal pins. Yeah, stuff. That makes sense. So, might fix that in the future, but nonetheless, it flies very nice as is, so, and nothing is broken. So yeah, as far as that goes, those are my two biggest mistakes. And then, aside from the mistakes, if you see in here, I have this piece. Now, I'm not sure if you can really read it. Oh, no, of course you can't. Why would you be able to do that? Well, you can kind of see it in there. Yeah, you can kind of see it in there. It's right there, that moving thing. It says FPV, and then it says Blue Sky UBEC. And so, that was, I suppose, a problem. It wasn't a mistake, it was a problem, because I didn't understand, or I didn't know that that I bought opto ESCs, meaning I needed a different source to power my flight controller, and a flight controller, get this, oh, that's good, let me just fix my camera here, sorry about that, and opto ESCs do not power your flight controller, so I needed something to power my flight controller, and I couldn't just directly connect it to the PDB. So I had to use a UBEC, or a 5-volt regulator, in order to actually power the flight controller. And now, it's very simple once you get something like that. In fact, it was so simple that I literally just had to solder on one side of the UBEC, and then plug in the other, because the JST that was on it Again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this. I can remove the Banggood battery strap, which, by the way, the quality on those is pretty good. They haven't, that's obviously you're going to have some indentations, but it hasn't ripped or torn or anything. So, but I had to use that. Let's see, come on. There you go. You can see that red JST connector in there, and that literally just plugged right in. And so all you have to do if you're looking to get UBEC like that, in fact I'll link it in the description below, and all you have to do is plug it into one of the motor ports on the, or motor ports I guess you could call it, is on the actual flight controller. So all you got to do is solder up two ends of the UBEC onto anywhere on the on the PDB, sorry, and then plug the other end of it with JST into one of the ports on the flight controller. Now be careful when you do it, because obviously you got to get the polarity right, otherwise you're going to fry your board. So just pay attention to on the side of on the very edge of the board. It should tell you. On mine it's right here. Now I know obviously you can't see it, because, well, maybe you can if I give you a little bit more light. Yeah, you kind of can. You can see that minus right there, and it says plus and signal. I would show you, but I don't think I have the light to be able to do that. Oh, there you go, you see the plus. Alright, so, yeah, basically, though, that plus and minus just shows you where to plug it in and what the polarity is. So, you want to be careful and mindful of that. And then, obviously you have to plug it into the positive and negative, not the signal. So once you do that, it's really, really simple. It'll just boot up. It works perfectly. So, but just be mindful of that when you're ordering parts, because you don't want to be stuck with a quadcopter that you can only power the flight controller through a USB port, which is exactly what I had. It was kind of funny, but at the same time not so funny, because I wanted to fly it and I couldn't. Nonetheless, moving on, I guess I'll move on to kind of my final thoughts and conclusions about this build, and the fact that I'm going to have some flight footage. I'm going to put up some flight footage, not right now, soon. I'll leave that open-ended for the fact that I don't know exactly when I can get that up. But nonetheless, I will have some flight footage at some point. And so, my final kind of conclusion about this build is, for the price and the performance that you get, and especially you got a flash beta flight, because it flies very, very well. Especially, even on stock PIDs, it flies very well. So, my final thought is, for the price, if you want to get into building quadcopters, racing quadcopters, it just makes sense to start off with something cheap that you can thrash, you can beat on, and you generally don't care as much as you would if you spent $500 or something, insane like that. I say insane because this is more of, beginner stuff, or just budget stuff in general if you don't have the money to spend. And if you don't have the money to spend and you want a budget quadcopter, the parts that I used in this one are absolutely phenomenal. For the price that you're paying, and especially if you've never flown something, that you've built before. The parts and everything are phenomenal. I mean, as I've said, the FlySky i6, I've heard people say, oh, it's crap before, but it's not if all you've flown is a toy-grade quad. It's a huge upgrade, and I don't plan on buying a Tyrannus very soon, maybe in the future once I get really good, but for right now, a FlySky i6 and those Racer Star $7 or $8 motors, paired with a $26 frame, is perfect. And it's everything that I wanted from the start in a great bundle of parts and at an extremely cheap price at that. So, as far as a recommendation, I would say 100% gung ho, go for those parts if you don't know necessarily what parts to get. Look at my last video, take a look at the video, take a look at the description, and all the parts are there, with the exception of the UBEC. I'm adding that in the description to this video. It is not in the last video. I might add it at some point, but unless I say that or I put a comment on this video or something like that, it's not in the last description. But, you know, go for those parts. It's a great build. It went together nice and easy as far as I'm concerned, being a first-time builder. And I would recommend it to anyone that is hesitant on, you know, what parts to get, or should I build one versus should I buy a pre-built. And if, you know, the fact that this is $200, right? This is $200 roughly, I believe, with the charger. This is $200, by the way. And I believe it's $170 without, and that's including a transmitter. And that's including a battery. I would buy more than that, but you know, just go for it and build it. You know, I wish I had done that from the start. I'm not saying my Falcon 250 wasn't fun and it wasn't, you know, something great to learn on, but it would be better if you learn on something smoother and something that gives you more confidence. I had not that much confidence in my Falcon when I was flying it because it did some funky things in the air. So, you know, the Falcon 250 Pro with the F3, a better option, yes, but it's still not giving you the smarts you need or the experience you need in building a quadcopter, you know, and being able to repair it. Because what happens if you crash your Falcon 250? You know, are you going to know what to repair? In my case, I did because I had watched enough YouTube and enough builds to know what's what. But are you going to know that? Probably not if you haven't seen enough videos. But, you know, or read enough things, or seen enough pictures, or seen enough real-life situations. But nonetheless, just go for those parts and figure the build out as you go. And that's what I did, and I am extremely, extremely happy with the way everything went, the way the build went, the way, you know, it was just fun. And yeah, I made mistakes. Obviously, this is a mistake. You know, I'm gonna have to fix that. I'm gonna take it off most likely. Like I said, I might have to use that stupid little yellow thing. But the point is, I had fun doing it, and I'm gonna build more in the future. And now I'm gonna know how. I'm gonna know the little things to do. And you gotta start somewhere. And this was my starting point, and I'm beyond happy with the results of it. I'm learning how to fly much better because of this quadcopter, and so it's really, I'm just beyond happy. That's my conclusion, is that I'm beyond happy that I built this quadcopter. And the other thing, learn how to fly rate mode. Yes, right off the bat, I'd say, okay, use angle mode or a self-leveling mode of some sort, just to get your bearing on what the controls do. But as soon as you can, make sure you flip it into rate mode. Because when you turn off that auto level, it feels really funky. And this was my first, you know, this was the quadcopter that I didn't actually understand how to set up different flight modes, so I had to fly in rate mode, and, you know, or acro, whatever you want to call it. I had to fly in acro, and it helped me a lot. You feel more free when you're not flying with something pushing back on the quadcopter. There's less oscillation when you do it as well. And so it's just an all around smoother experience, and I would recommend as soon as you can to stop flying in any self-leveling mode. And that's my final conclusion, is that I'm very happy with the build. I'm happy with the way it turned out, and fly in acro. I'm sorry if this video was a little bit long. I think it's about 25 minutes at this point, which is, yikes, a little bit, like I said, a little bit long, but I just wanted to get all the points and little things that went wrong when I was building this. Now, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to do a video about the software and Betaflight and kind of loading this flight controller with Betaflight, but if I do, I will say that make sure you install the drivers. That was a little tidbit. If I don't put a video up, make sure you install all the drivers when you're flashing it with Betaflight. But yeah, that's pretty much my conclusion. Is just I'm very happy with the build. I'm sure I've said that enough. And so look at my last video, grab those parts, put them in your cart, and just get them sent to your house, because that's what you gotta do. You gotta just grab the parts, build it, and be done. And so that's my final thoughts about this quadcopter. So I will have some flight footage soon, not sure when. It will be up at some point, and so that's kind of a wrap. Once again, I'm Alex from Tech for Life, and I am signing out. Please leave me a comment down below telling me what I could do better. Thank you. Bye.